All right, we are going to have a Bible time today, and the title is "Do You Want to Get Well?" and the passage is John chapter 5, verses 1 through 9. So we are going to go through verses together. Verse 1. Sometime later, Jesus went up to Jerusalem for one of the Jewish festivals. Now there is in Jerusalem near the sheep gate a pool, which in Aramaic is called Bethesda, and which is surrounded by 5 covered colonnades. Here a great number of disabled people used to lie, the blind, the lame, and the paralyzed. 오늘 성경에는 이 베티스다라는 곳에 아픈 사람들이 많이 있었다고 그렇게 적혀 있어요. Have you ever gone to the hospital and realized that in this world there are so many sick people? And I'm going to ask you a very fundamental, important, but a very basic question. 사람들이 왜 아프고 죽을까요? Why do people become so sick and why do people die? Think about that. Why do we get sick and why do people die? Because of disease? Because of accidents? A simple answer might be because we eventually get old and everyone dies. But I want to make a very important case that we are hurt and we die because of sin. 사람은 죄 때문에 아프고 죄 때문에 죽게 되는 거예요. Here was a man who was crippled or invalid. 잘 걸을 수가 없는 사람이었어요. And he was at a pool called the Bethesda. As you can see in the picture on the right-hand side, so Bethesda is an actual place that existed, and you can actually find some of the traces of the place archaeologically or physically in Jerusalem. And I try to imagine what the scene would be like. So, the Bible testifies that there was a multitude of people who were either blind, lame, or sick, just lying around. And why were they there? The name Bethesda means the house of mercy. And it is told that sometimes there's a stirring in the water by the angel, and the first person to get into the water will be healed of whatever disease they had. So you can imagine that people have gathered from all around the area to become the first person to get into the water to be healed. But if you think about that, the story is actually it doesn't sound like a house of mercy. Out of so many people who are sick, only one person is healed. And who has the higher chance of getting in the water? It is probably the strongest and the wealthiest person who can hire somebody else to feed him and to help him. The person who is weak, the person who really needs healing and help, cannot possibly be the first one to get into the water. And verse 5 says, one who was there had been invalid for 38 years. Think about that. 38 years. What would happen to you if you have been invalid or not able to walk for 38 years? I bet you that it's going to completely destroy your life. You would have lost your job. You would have lost all of your friends. You would have become distant with your family members. You're crippled, and a sense of despair and hopelessness will have destroyed your life. And to this person, what does Jesus say? At the end of verse 6, Jesus asks him, do you want to get well? What do you think about that question? Do you want to get well? To a person who has been sick and invalid for 38 years. I thought, what a rude question. Imagine going to hospital and asking a person who has been sick for 38 years the same question. Do you want to get well? You would have been yelled at and kicked out of the hospital. But why is Jesus asking this person this question that seems so rude? I believe that Jesus wanted him to say the words of hope and will for his life out of his own mouth and with his own ears to hear these words. 우리가 믿는 것을 말로 하는 것이 정말 중요합니다. And Jesus is stirring up the words of hope and renewed desire for his life. Verse 7, Sir, the invalid replied, I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. While I am trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of him. Then Jesus said to him, Get up, pick up your mat and walk. At once, this man was cured. He picked up his mat and walked. Jesus performed the miracle here by instantly healing this man. Where does the power of healing and miracle come from? Comes from Jesus. But Jesus wanted something out of the man in order to perform this miracle. Jesus didn't want to just give him a miracle, but Jesus wanted his hope, his will, and his desire for a renewed life. Jesus is saying, I can perform a miracle, but I need a little bit of faith, hope, and will sprinkled so that it's going to be meaningful to you. The most important thing in this passage is that Jesus came to him. It wasn't the stirring of the water by the angel that healed him. By the way, I don't think that's true. I think it's just a legend. I'm going to explain the reasons why a little later, so you can perhaps stick around for the adult sermon. But it was an encounter with Jesus that gave him a new chance of life. Do you know where the true Bethesda is? The true house of mercy? It is where Jesus comes to us, to meet us, and to touch our hearts in order to heal us. The true Bethesda, the true house of mercy, is the house of worship. Where 2 or 3 gather in his name, you can be assured that Jesus is there. You can be assured that right now, Jesus is here wanting to meet us and heal our body and our hearts. He came here to speak to us, to touch our hearts, to heal us, to renew us, and to restore us. The place where Jesus is, the place where people have gathered to worship and pray, is a true Bethesda, the house of mercy. This week, I want to challenge you. 이번 한 주 동안 혹시 여러분들의 마음을 아프게 하는 것이 있다면 이 한 가지를 놓고 기도했으면 좋겠어요. It could be for yourself, for a friend, for a situation, or for your family. And remember that just as Jesus came to the crippled man, Jesus comes to us when we are approaching God and praying with faith. So now going back to the very first question that I started with. 사람은 왜 아프고 죽을까요? 죄 때문에 그래요. 우리 모든 사람은 eventually we all become ill and eventually we all die, and that is because of sin. And to take care of the fundamental problem that faces every single soul here on this earth, Jesus came to the man who has been sick for 38 years. Just as Jesus came to him, Jesus comes to us. And throughout this week, as you spend time praying for healing, I want you to experience and find and have an encounter with the Jesus who comes to us.